Hello. Okay, we are starting on page 5 today. And you can label that LCM. And we're going to put the same thing on page 5. Let's start out on the left side. And of course, like last time, I will definitely tell you what those mean. And just like last time, we're going to build from the bottom up. So M stands for multiple. And a multiple is what you'd get if you counted by that number. So think of maybe when you were, you know how I feel about this. Stop it. I wish there probably is a way to just undo everything, but I don't know how to do it. Think back to when you were in kindergarten or first grade and you were counting by a number. Those were actually multiples. So another way to think about it is if you multiply a certain number by anything, these are the numbers you'd get to. So for example, multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, goes on and on. There are infinite multiples. Multiples of 5 are 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and again, they go on forever. You could keep going forever. Okay, so those are multiples when you count by a number. Just like yesterday, C stands for common. And when we say common, again, we mean shared. So if we're looking at common multiples of 3 and 5 that show up in both places, one I see is 15. I'm looking at my numbers and none of these other numbers show up in the 5 list. And these numbers don't show up in the 3 list. It's just 15. So a common multiple of 3 and 5 is 15. Now remember that I said that multiples can go on infinitely. So if I kept going, another common multiple I get to is 30. And if I kept going from there, I would get to a common multiple of 45. These are just things I know from a lifetime of numbers. If I kept going, I'd get to 60. So there are infinite possibilities of common multiples. And this is where our last word is important, and that word is least. And least can mean a lot of things, like if something is your least favorite food, it means you don't really like it. Or if something is the least prevalent disease, it means most people don't have it. But like yesterday, how greatest meant biggest, least in this case means smallest. So the smallest or the lowest of the common multiples. So if the common multiples of 3 and 5 are 15, 30, 45, 60, the least common multiple of 3 and 5, the smallest one, is 15. So it's the first number that we get if we're counting by the numbers. The first number that shows up in both lines is the least common multiple. Let's do an example. This is page 39. Page 39, number 1. And it's the LCM, least common multiple, of 3 and 8. So I'm going to do the same thing I did up here is I'm going to list multiples. Similar to our last strategy, or our last thing we learned about greatest common factor, the first strategy we talked about was making a list of factors. So in this case, it's just going to be a list of multiples. So I start with 3, and I have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. As a rule of thumb, I usually go 8 multiples and then stop and I start writing the other ones. If I don't come across a common multiple, I can always go back and add more to it. Just seems like 8 is usually long enough that it's shown up, and if not, oh well. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice that the first multiple of 3 is 3. Because if I'm counting by threes, the first number I'm going to say is 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. We'll do 10 just for good measure. And now I do multiples of 8. I count by 8s. 8, 16, 24, 32. But actually, I already see a common multiple. 24 shows up in both lines. Now, because I want the smallest common multiple, and there's nothing that occurred before that, I don't need to keep going. I already have the least common multiple. So the least common multiple of 3 and 8 is 24. It's the first number that I can get to counting by both 3 and 8. If you, as you go to do this, like the next one asks you to do multiples of 14, and you might be thinking, gosh, Miss Funk, in kindergarten, we did not count by 14s. And I suppose that's probably true. So you have a couple of options. You can do addition off to the side, like 14 plus 14 is 28, plus 14 is 42, plus 14 is 66, 56, so on and so forth. Another tool you can use, however, is your multiplication chart. You can go down your multiplication chart on the 14s, and these are the multiples of 14. Okay, so I just want to make a quick note to self. Multiplication chart is your friend. So your factor table was your BFF with greatest common factor. Your multiplication chart is your BFF with least common multiple.